Alright, what is up, guys? This is the Dual Show crew. Here with a little impromptu little because some breaking news happened earlier. We kind of we're obligated. We have to talk about. So discuss the major bombshell that happened this morning. We got Macho.
How's it going, guys? No intro today. It's just macho. What's going on?
Also Macho, can you check the sounds to make sure we're good?
Yeah, I'm about to check right now.
Cool. And then we also got a special guest, Gene from lordsofgaming.net. How you doing, man?
Oh no, Jesus, they're taking Call of Duty away. Not Call of Duty.
Um, Actually, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Tell me, what is your favorite Call of Duty game?
My favorite Call of Duty game is probably going to be either Call of Duty 2 or Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War.
Really?
Um, I only want to say Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War because
We're good, by the way.
getting together with my friends in Zombies was a cool, fun thing we did during the pandemic to kind of connect and stay together. I rarely ever play video games with my friends. They got PS5s for the holidays, and then we all jumped in and played Call of Duty World at War. So that was really cool, and it felt next gen to me out of the box with PlayStation, and I bought it with the intent of covering all the games when the PS5 launched, and I actually really like it, and it stuck with me. But after that, it's probably go Call of Duty 2 on the Xbox, original
Interesting.
Xbox.
Interesting. All right, I was not
Yeah.
expecting a Cold War, but yeah, you made a great point, man, for sure. Um, all right, man. So you guys obviously know why we're here. So this morning, and I can't wait to hear everybody's like where it's like that classic thing, like where were you at when this happened, right? So I hear that for everyone. But yeah, so basically this morning, Microsoft announced through the Xbox Wire that they are they are acquiring Activision Blizzard and King for a whopping, what was it, 68 billion dollars, right? Yeah,
It's just south of
68.7.
Disney's buying Fox for like 71 billion.
right.
It's
Essentially,
crazy, crazy amount of money.
it's an amount of money that I like. I could live maybe 10 lifetimes and I will never make that amount of money. Um, but yeah, so I obviously we're gonna give our thoughts on the ramifications of this, the sort of ripple effect that this sent out across the industry. But yeah, really quickly, let's start off by talking about like where, like how did you guys find out about this? Where were you guys at? What was your immediate reaction? Like, let's get into it, man.
Gene, I want you to go first, man. You're a
Okay.
special guest, so kick it off for us.
Okay. So I was dead asleep, and I wake up. I left my phone on when I went to bed, as I was listening to a podcast when I fell asleep. I wake up and my Discord is like on fire, and it's like a fever dream. I didn't think any of it was real, and I was just kind of like out of it, and I must have like processed it for probably about an hour, and I woke up around 8:30, and I don't think the article got posted on LogNet till 10:15, 10:30, just because I'm sitting there in like disbelief, and I'm reading Twitter, and I'm trying to get all the facts straight, and some of it was on the Wall Street Journal, and some of it was on Bloomberg, and some of it was on the Xbox Wire. And then later, VentureBeat had this just terrible interview with Bobby Kotick, just totally covering for him. And I got an article together, got it posted out, and then I just sat there in front of the computer, like doom scrolling on Twitter. I don't want to call it doom scrolling, but just sitting there on Twitter, just like, did this really just happen? What's the next shoe to fall? Are any more details going to trickle out from this? And really, it didn't. Just kind of what we got this morning was what we got, and I just sat there just reading it over and over again, like this really just happened. This is the biggest acquisition in video games history, probably one of the biggest news events or business type events that ever
I can't
happened in
think
video
I
games
can't
history.
think of anything bigger than this, to be honest. I really
right?
can't.
And
No,
the
it's
yeah,
probably the biggest next to like I mean, Sony not going to E3, bowing at E3 was big, but like this is monumental.
right. And it has really no impact on me because I have all the consoles and I have all the consoles, and I think I bought in like two Call of Duties in the past 10 years. Um, and they're not making Crash Bandicoot anymore, and they're not making really anything else anymore besides
I
the
wouldn't
Blizzard
hold your breath
games.
now, man. Right?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, even so, I mean, we'll get into it, but
Right.
the changes that they're going to make, the positive changes that Microsoft's going to make, are going to take 2 to 3 years. They in it and to anything, assuming this gets approved by the FTC, they can't even get their hands on anything until next June.
Exactly.
But what we saw with the Bethesda acquisition, I thought was more relevant because first of all, it's $4 billion for what Disney bought Star Wars for. Microsoft got a Bethesda. They got like 4 or 5 studios that are huge, massive, 300 to 500 people studios. Um, they got all these IPs: Wolfenstein, Dune, Starfield, Fallout, Elder Scrolls. I think Elder Scrolls alone is worth $1 billion. Never mind the people who make it, and the properties, the real estate they have, and everything else, the tools, just the brand. I think the IP. I think you could sell for $1 billion. But this Activision thing, my immediate reaction is like, holy crap, they overpaid. Um, the price of Activision on the stock market yesterday was like close to $60, and to get Bobby to sell, they gave him $95 a share, which is almost what the price of the stock was before all this drama. And I don't want to call it drama, but all these sexual abuse allegations. There's people, they can't make any more games because there's constant strikes, and they're talking about unionizing, and there's union busting. They put this amazing woman in charge from Vicarious Visions, and she leaves because she's like, oh boy, I won't be able to change anything here, and she leaves, and it's just so bad. And Sony's talking about not really partnering with them anymore in anything, and Microsoft's talking about not really partnering with anything. And to me, they stopped making all of the games they have, and they're just focusing on Call of Duty and Diablo and Overwatch and World of Warcraft, and that's really it. So there's not a lot there in terms of equity that they're buying. So the amount of money that they gave Bobby Kotick is just asinine. I just think it's a crazy amount of money. The guy made $100 million today just in his stock share inflation alone. Never mind the fact that
Jeez.
he's gonna get a
Jesus Christ.
$300 million golden parachute to leave Activision. If he leaves Activision under bad terms, he's I mean, I don't believe he gets the golden parachute. There's a graph online of like, if he dies, he gets one amount. If he gets sick, he gets one amount. If he gets retires, he gets one amount, and it goes all the way up to like, if he leaves on good terms, he gets $300 million to leave. Imagine if you got a month's salary to leave your job, right? He gets $300 million to quit Activision on his own account. Um, but if they kick him out, it's a lot less. I did not think for a second. We've been working on getting ready I have getting ready for the financial calls that are coming up at the end of the month. I did not think for a second that he would make it to Activision's financial call. I just didn't, and obviously it was true, but I thought they would oust him. I did not think that they were going to put him on that call and let him get beat up by the press. I thought that they were going to kick him out well before that. And this is like, if you're watching HBO Succession, this is like an HBO Succession power move that he gets to stay in charge for the next year and a half and gets this massive, massive golden parachute on top of his stocks are worth so much now, and he gets $95 a share when the company's not worth anything. I didn't think he was going to make it to the financial call. If he made it to the financial call, I thought they were going to oust him right after the financial call because I thought that something would go wrong there, and their stocks were going down every day, and they had no way out. Their people didn't want to go to work to make their games for them anymore, and they couldn't do anything about letting these people go because they'd have a bigger mess on their hands. And the company was just deteriorating by the day, and Microsoft comes in and gives them everything they would want and then some.
Yeah.
But
I think
that's my reaction.
I think one of the most interesting things is the timing, and it kind of makes me wonder. Like you said, you're really shocked at the price, but it makes me wonder that if all these sort of the uh, plethora of allegations weren't happening right now or didn't come out when they came out, I wonder just how much more they would have gotten for this acquisition, right? So I do wonder if, like, when all this stuff started coming out, was Bobby Kotick then a little bit more willing to talk to Microsoft at that point? Um, yeah, it kind of makes you wonder just how much higher could this price would have been if if Activision wasn't a shitty company, Um, but yeah, so Macho, what about you, man? Like, how? Tell me, what were you going through when this sort of broke?
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep it brief. I just, man, I was working, and let me just tell you, it was a bad time to be distracted by Twitter nonsense. I had to put away my phone just because I saw the number, I saw the news, I just saw everybody blowing up on it, and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, who? I gotta tell somebody. Like, but the thing is, everybody already knows because like it's hot news right then and there. It was insane. Man, I was just, I was just working, sitting on my couch, just chilling, man. I was like, today's gonna be a regular day. So we're getting some Kingdom Hearts news. It's gonna be pretty exciting, right? Going to Switch on the cloud. Nah, it's not the biggest news of the day, buddy. Nah, it's
Hell
not
no.
even by a long shot.
That wouldn't even be the biggest news on a random Monday, man.
Hey man, it's big news for us, right? We're getting to the Switch on the cloud. We finally made it to the Switch, all right?
I'm kidding. I'm
Um,
kidding. But yeah,
no, but yeah, it was absolutely mind blowing.
yeah.
And it was like, oh, today's gonna be exciting. Immediately went to, oh wait, I'm not sure if I really like this.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of hit me immediately. So I'll go with what happened to me when I found out about this. I don't know why my body is weird, but I just like periodically throughout the night will just randomly wake up. And so like while I'm up, I'll just like check my phone and then I'll go back to sleep for like another 2 or 3 hours and just like I keep doing that. Um so so thankfully the first time that this happened to me was at like I don't know, like 11 whenever this broke Eastern time. Um, and yeah, I was just scrolling through my phone, and I think actually, Gene, I think it was Lognet that I first saw, this kind of got, broken to me or whatever. And I was like, man, it's too early for April Fools. Like, they must be doing like a joke or like a wish list kind of thing or something like that. I don't know. So, I scrolled past Lognet, and then it was just like constant tweet after tweet after tweet after tweet, and like I'm laying in bed with like my eyes like half closed, bloodshot, and then like I kind of rub the crust on my eyes, and then I'm like, wait a minute, and then yeah, it just like finally settled in, like holy shit, like this is real. um so yeah, I was absolutely just like floored by it. Um, yeah, I think that's definitely like the biggest news. But then like yeah, after sort of that initial shock and yeah, me being floored by it kind of wore off, then you start kind of thinking about like the pros. Obviously, first and foremost, you start thinking about the positive impacts that this could potentially have on the workers at Activision Blizzard, right? You hope for nothing but the best, that hopefully this is sort of like a clean house situation that just kind of like this I will never use this term again, but this is the only time because it makes sense here, but like a kind of like drain the swamp kind of thing, get rid of all of that mess. And hopefully it leads to hopefully with this it leads to some actual change. You kind of think about that first and foremost, but then you also start thinking about the cons, right? The consolidation of the industry, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, all of this, literally my mind was just like a roller coaster throughout like the entire morning. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. Like we said, definitely I feel like the biggest news in gaming history. And it's funny because I feel like we said that last year with Bethesda, and now we're saying it again here. But yeah, man. So I'm curious, like, guys, where do you guys want to take this conversation next? Because I feel like there's several different ways that we can take this conversation, like in terms of like how does this affect Sony? Does Sony need to respond, right? Because like everyone is saying that, oh, now Sony needs to immediately go out there and buy, a Square Enix or a Capcom or an EA. And I don't know about how you guys feel about that, but me, I'm like, no, man, that's the last thing that I want.
Well, let's go on the good. Let's touch on the good and the bad, right?
Right.
So, a woman has killed herself over the harassment she was subjected to at Activision.
Yep.
You have Bobby Kotick threatening his secretary or his assistant that he was going to kill her. This guy who now gets a golden parachute. You have a company that a month ago, a week ago, if you told me they were never going to publish a game again, I would have believed you. You have rumors of this year's Call of Duty not being ready or potentially being delayed. Last year's Call of Duty bombed. It bombed. It's one of like the worst performing Call of Duties in the past couple of years. And it looks like there's no way out. All the drama with Activision Blizzard and the fact that they can't get World of Warcraft right, and people are flooding away from World of Warcraft and going to Final Fantasy. Just at every turn, Vicarious Visions makes a great Crash Bandicoot remaster. They make a great Tony Hawk remaster, and then they get absorbed in to try to go help fix Diablo 4, which is in development hell. Overwatch,
Yep.
the director of Overwatch leaves. There's no leadership over Overwatch. That game has now been delayed 3 years, Overwatch 2, and there's talk about it just being like a patch or a live service update to Overwatch 1 and then scrapping Overwatch 2. Like, if you had told me they never publish a game again, I'd believe you. So,
Yeah, same.
in the
Same.
sense of
They were in
Microsoft
hot
coming in,
waters.
right? I mean, which is why I think Microsoft overpaid because there's there's like a skeleton crew of people left making Call of Duty, Overwatch 2, maybe not, and Diablo 4. Um, so Microsoft's going to come in and save this company, and that's the good news. Like, and I had an exchange with Dan Stapleton on Twitter today, and he's like, "This is awful. This is terrible." I'm like, "That was my first reaction too, but what are the alternatives that Activision could not keep going down this path.
Yeah.
Their stock prices were going down every week. The drama, the issues were getting worse and worse and worse. Bobby was never going to survive this. There was either going to be change through the board ousting him, and something else was going to happen. But I think along the way, the whole entire company would have fallen apart. Activision was the biggest and best publisher in video games when I was growing up,
Wait, you
and
think
now
the
they're
board
nothing.
the board would have ousted him eventually? Because they
I
had been pretty
I don't
adamant.
think that I don't think that Bobby Kotick wanted to do this. I don't think that uh, I don't think that he would have survived the financial call for the end of the end of the month. I don't believe he would have made it there, and if he did, I don't believe that he would have survived shortly afterwards. It's just how bad things are going. He is the sole reason why the stock price was going down every week, and it was not going to last. And as soon as they got rid of him, the stock price was going to go back up, and everyone in the room knew that. And I think that this was his only way out. And like I said, he gets a $300 million parachute for leaving. Alternatives, I had the exchange with Dan Stapleton from IGN on Twitter. Alternatives were Google buys them. No, they're getting out of games. Amazon buys them. Maybe not. Apple, maybe not. Are
I
Apple and
think
Amazon going
I
to come in
think
and save Activision? No.
I think honestly those are possibilities because like we talk about the whole competition thing about Microsoft versus Sony versus
Uh-huh.
Nintendo, and this actually goes back to, if you guys remember that one Phil Spencer quote about him saying that, like, hey, we respect Sony and Nintendo, but like we don't view them as our competitors, right? Because it's sort of like Microsoft is fighting with like the big dogs now. It's like the $1 trillion companies or whatever, the Googles, the
Mm.
Apples, the Amazons, right?
Tencent.
And Tencent,
Tencent,
because
man.
they are the only ones who could realistically make acquisitions like this, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's why I think Amazon absolutely. If Activision could have gotten any lower than they possibly were right now, I definitely could have seen an Activision or a Tencent eventually at some point swoop in to pick these guys up.
I don't know if Tencent would have spent $60 billion. I don't know what their financials look like. I just don't think they've got billion. $70 billion.
True, true.
Amazon doesn't seem to be into the idea of console games. They're focused on PC. And Apple seems to be focused on mobile games. I don't think that Call of Duty really fits their platform and what they're doing. And if Activision's worth $70 billion, then there's probably $60 billion worth of Call of Duty there that you're buying, and then like $10 billion worth of World of Warcraft and Diablo that you're buying.
But then
So
you also have to factor in King, right? Like Candy Crush and all the games that King make, they're probably
Yeah.
like probably the biggest games in the world, right? So like
yeah,
yeah, so I think that if you're Amazon, specifically, like it's not just about Call of Duty, which is also I think a thing that people on Twitter are like kind of like forgetting about, right? That yeah, obviously Call of Duty is fucking massive, but like yeah, it is also King is I think maybe even bigger, right? So
No, yeah, that's their direct answer to mobile gaming.
right, which is
yeah.
something Microsoft hasn't done well in.
Yeah, and you're 100% correct. I did kind of underplay the value of King there, but I think that then Apple goes back to like, okay, still okay, so we're buying $70 billion worth of Activision, but we're what are we going to do with Call of Duty? You know what I mean? They probably don't see $70 billion worth of King there, and I don't think they want to publish console games because if they did, they would, especially Amazon and Google. If they wanted to publish console games, that's how they would have started into the games, not the direction they're heading now. And then Activision's IP. I've been talking about this for a long time now. Prior to this, all this stuff going on, I was thinking like if someone were to acquire Activision, or if Activision were to sell off some assets to raise funds to get things going, they could just sell their IP. But if you look back at the history of Activision, like a huge bulk of the games they've worked on have been licensed IP, like Marvel and Spider-Man, stuff like that they don't own anymore, or they never owned. And a lot of the IPs that they did own, I think like someone threw out Vigilante 8 today, right? Like they sold off these IPs or like let them expire. They don't own jack anymore in terms of intellectual property. And people are getting excited about Xbox making a Crash Bandicoot game. Look, that's probably about all they're going to get out of it. But who's going to make it? Everyone there is working on Call of Duty, so they can divest the teams and break the teams up and reverse what Activision's doing. But Activision's going to be on the course that they're on for the next year and a half before Microsoft can interfere, and they're not going to roll back and undo what they're doing. So. It's too late for Vicarious Visions. Vicarious Visions wasn't even mentioned in the press release today. They're gone. They've been absorbed into Activision.
Yeah, no, it's that's one of the saddest parts too. Is like I think like a lot of the changes that people are hoping for that can be made is not going to happen. For me, it's not. In my opinion, it's not going to really come to fruition until the next generation.
Yeah, and so 2 years from now, if that's what Toys for Bob wants to do, they can start development on Crash Bandicoot. Or a year and a half from now, they can start development on Crash Bandicoot. And so then we're 3 or 4 years away from another Crash Bandicoot. And it's like that. So that's after that year and a half, right? So you're talking about probably 6 years away from Microsoft's influence on these studios delivering a product. So this is just they way overpaid. And if you're Amazon, going back to the whole point of this, if you're Amazon, Google, or Apple, why are you going to overpay? They overpaid $35 per share of Activision if you can't do crap with it.
I feel like
It's the long game. It's a long game that Microsoft's playing, which I would have to agree because again, it's all to bolster like their one motive, which was Game Pass, and even again, regardless of how we look at it, but I think that's kind of like the core foundation of like what they're going for, and I mean we'll get more into it too, but yeah, I think that's more or less kind of what we're driving towards. Like they want content for Game Pass, and they and the thing is. I'm gonna get some flack for saying this, but I just don't like the fact that they buy their way into stardom. I love like the gradual build of like their own IP or their own games that they make from those studios that they have in their catalog. And to me, it's just another move where they're just buying popular IP just to fill in their content for Game Pass. But again, that's what they've been driving towards for like the past couple years. So it makes sense.
hey man, I said it back on the Bethesda deal. I don't like the fact that I can no longer play, like Arcane's next, well, the project after Redfall, because I don't care about Redfall. But like if they were to make like another Dishonored, like I'm pretty upset about that, right? Or Machine Games' next project, or et cetera, right? Like I'm pretty bummed about that. Um, with Activision, it's a little bit different because I haven't bought a Call of Duty since Black Ops 1. I haven't played an Activision game since probably Black Ops 1 as well. So this one is kind of like meh to me. But yeah, definitely, see that this is definitely going to affect, especially the casual gamer. Now this kind of goes into Sony and how this possibly affects Sony because I feel like it's not catastrophic, but goddamn, dude, this is like if you're Sony, I feel like you're sweating a little bit at this, right?
No, Jim Ryan woke up and he was definitely pounding his desk today. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because if you go on the top charts for PlayStation,
MPD released today too, right? Conveniently. And what was at the top, Macho?
yeah, of course, you know what it is. You know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
That's how it always been. The thing is, like, because PlayStation and Call of Duty had just had such strong ties since like the PS4 right now, and this is a big blow to. I feel like it's a big blow to them and their bottom line for as far as third party support and third party funding. The Call of Duty was definitely a major factor into what they're doing. Now I feel like the next best thing for them is probably Fortnite, which is probably a big thing on their console as well.
Yeah. And this obviously kind of loops back around into the conversation of like exclusivity, and I feel like this is so weird that we're doing this same song and dance this time around when we just had it with Bethesda. People are like in denial of like, oh no, Call of Duty will still be on PlayStation and et cetera, when it's like Phil Spencer's literally saying the same exact things that he said when the Bethesda thing was going around, right? Offering up these like vague, ambiguous, statements on like, oh yeah, well the thing we want PlayStation gamers to know is that this acquisition was not about taking things away from those communities, right? Like he said the exact same thing last time, man, and people are still like holding out hope that Activision Blizzard's games are going to be on PlayStation, and I'm like, guys, like it's a wrap. Come on.
Absolutely no. Yeah, I mean and what's crazy about that is like again, we talk about Activision Blizzard, and so you and I are kind of like we're kind of like whatever, because the last game I played from Activision was Crash Bandicoot 4, and I loved it, but I know that Toys for Bob is never making another Crash game again. Maybe this can change, but I really don't have high hopes for that.
So this goes back to what Gene is saying. Do you guys really do think that? Because like I feel like maybe this is like wishful thinking, but like I feel like Microsoft really does have a great opportunity to be like, okay, like hey, we have all these studios funneling into the Call of Duty machine. Let's take out a Toys for Bob or Vicarious Visions or hell, even a Beanox, even though I think that's not going to happen. But like let's let these teams, make a Psychonauts 2 Double Fine sized game and let them, just do something to kind of feed that Game Pass machine. Like I could totally see a future of that happening, but do you guys disagree with that?
Well, absolutely, I disagree because Microsoft has Halo, Microsoft has Gears of War, they have Bethesda, the Machine Games, all those studios. It doesn't they don't gain anything by doing Call of Duty every year, so they're financially incentivized by taking those teams away, Toys for Bob and Beanox and Vicarious Visions, hopefully, taking those teams away from what they're doing and kind of decentralizing them back to giving them their own projects again, because they need more games and more studios, not bigger games. That's the subscription model. They're going to be okay if they put out a Call of Duty every 2 years because they have Halo in between. They're going to have Gears in between. They're going to have Machine Games in between. And like I said, unfortunately, it's going to take a year and a half before Microsoft could even reverse what Activision is doing. But they're absolutely going to take Toys for Bob and move them to something else. Now, look at what they did with Rare. Is Toys for Bob going to go get a new IP? Is Toys for Bob going to go work on Banjo-Kazooie? Are they going to get Crash Bandicoot? Are they going to get Viva Pinata? Are they going to get Spyro? I absolutely think Toys for Bob is going to do something. They're probably going to do Crash because they did Crash 4. And then so that's kind of, and I think Vicarious Visions is going to come back probably under a new name, and I think Beanox is going to come back under a new name, and they're going to get either probably new IPs.
Man, if you told me 10 years ago that the next Crash Bandicoot game is going to be an Xbox exclusive, I would look at you crazy.
Yeah.
I'm still gonna look at you crazy because I can't believe it still. Like that's absolutely just nuts to me that they. I mean, the thing is, like, again, the more you guys talk about, the more it does make sense for Beanox and Vicarious Visions and Toys for Bob to get different names, but still work on the IPs that or the franchises or maybe new stuff that they're really good at, and that can fall in more content for Game Pass, more diverse content for Game Pass that it's always wanting.
Yeah.
So I can kind of go back on what I was saying before, where it's like, I mean, maybe they just won't actually, you know, do their own thing. But for all we know, what Obsidian, that was it, Obsidian, right? That they had like a small man team that worked on Grounded.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they can do the same thing for all the other stuff, especially Toys for Bob. And Vicarious Vision. Those teams are insanely talented.
I think Microsoft would rather have something in Game Pass every month or every week than to have $500 million games or $300 million games. I really think that that's the direction they'd rather be in. And of course, they want to do something with Crash Bandicoot. Of course, they want to do something with Spyro. But unfortunately, there's no one there at Activision right now working on it, and Microsoft cannot dictate that to them for another year and a half. So 6 years from now, we're going to get a new Crash Bandicoot or Spyro or whatever it is that they're making.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I can definitely see that happening. So how does so in your guys' eyes, like how does Sony possibly compete with this? Because you're talking about just a pure like onslaught of content that Microsoft are in a position to offer to their subscribers in, let's say, 3 years from now, once this thing actually starts, rolling, right? Like Sony, like yes, they made a bunch of acquisitions recently, but I feel like it's still we will get like maybe two, three major exclusives at the most from them a year, whereas Microsoft now is in a position to offer what like I mean, Gene, you just said like something every month, but like I feel like something like maybe every other month or every 3 months is probably more realistic. But how does Sony possibly like counter this?
Well, I mean, to kind of go back on what we were saying before, and then I'll answer that question. Was that first of all, I think like Activision Blizzard becoming a part of Microsoft is overall going to be a positive thing for Activision Blizzard, especially since the whole drain the swamp things you're talking about before, Soul. Like that's actually the good part of it.
Yeah,
The other part is like again that content that's just going to that's going to keep on following in, and how Sony's going to respond to that. It's I feel like it shouldn't be fire with fire. Don't go and purchase up a Square Enix or a Capcom or anything like that, because the kind of content that Microsoft's going to be pushing out next 3 to 4 years is just going to be too hard to catch up to. So how do you make sure that you stand out from the crowd? And that's what they've been doing for the past
or
8 to 10 years. Or exactly because their pool just got 10 feet deeper, and they don't have their floaties. Um, so I think for them is going to keep doing what they've been doing for the past 8 to 10 years, and that's really focusing on their exclusives and making sure that the experience on the PlayStation console is nothing like you're ever going to get. They've been doing that with PS5, and they're going to keep doing that. But as far as like going up and buying stuff, I really don't see that happening unless PlayStation really goes up to Sony and says, "Hey, can we use some of that Spider-Man money you got from the box office to buy up something?" So, otherwise, it's gonna be rough.
like my thought is, and Gene, I want to get your thoughts on this topic as well in here soon. It's just that like we're talking like obviously we have Project Spartacus or whatever, waiting in the wings. It's coming soon or whatever, and now it's like okay, you take out two major publishers are off the board. All of Bethesda's games, all of Activision's games, which are all possible, candidates or whatever, possible games that you are now losing the opportunity to have in your own subscription service, right? That means there are no Call of Duty games, there are no previous Elder Scrolls or Fallouts or Wolfensteins, Dishonoreds, et cetera, that is not going to be in your Spartacus subscription service, right?
Diablo, not even a whiff of World of Warcraft.
Right. And then there's not only that, but now again that conversation of the $70 games, right? It is such a appealing sort of like tantalizing offer that really helps Microsoft that like, hey, you have, all of these, you can come to our, service, our games are essentially for free. You subscribe to Game Pass, and, our games are for free. But hey, if they were to still offer Call of Duty on PlayStation, that's $70 that you have to pay for, on that side, right?
We
Def
saw a good example with MLB The Show this year
Right,
or last year.
right. Obviously Hitman wasn't acquired, but like same thing with that, right? Like that's something that you can get for free soon.
In all
Almost,
three games, the
yeah,
entire
yeah,
trilogy.
yeah. So like as just like a casual, player, like you're seeing all of this, and I'm just kind of like, obviously we on this podcast have our reasons, but like as a casual guy, for shopping on Christmas or whatever, or just walking into a GameStop, like I feel like you have all of these reasons, like reason after reason after reason to go with Xbox. And with PlayStation, I don't know, it's becoming maybe like a little less and less alluring for people. I don't know, Gene, if you have like your thoughts on Sony, how they can react to this or what?
Here's what I would do, and I would do it in this order. And I've said this a million times. I sound like a broken record. I write this in my articles a lot. I would buy First Contact Entertainment before Facebook does. They are a VR studio that made one of the best PlayStation online shooters in Firewall Zero Hour. I buy them. I buy them 2 years ago, and I give them SOCOM. They're not doing a mainline SOCOM 5 or 4 or remake. They're doing a VR SOCOM spinoff, and that is going to be my tentpole shooter for the VR. And I know that sounds stupid and ridiculous, but Microsoft doesn't have a VR, and SOCOM is like almost a household name. It has a big sense of nostalgia, and it's going to move a lot of people to that platform. And I think that SOCOM is going to bring that nostalgia in the names, right? I open up a new studio in Austin, Texas. I open up a new studio in Manhattan.
Well, that's where
New
Blue
studio
Point
from the
is
ground.
in Austin.
Right. Okay, so maybe I forgot about Blue Point. Maybe that's not a great idea, but I open up new studios there. And those are new PlayStation studios. You're not going out and buying any one. You're getting commercial real estate as cheaply as you possibly can, and you're acquiring talent in those areas. There's Rockstar, Take Two, and that's about it in Manhattan. Avalanche in Manhattan. There's a wealth of talent there in New York that's being untapped. I build a studio somewhere for while commercial real estate is down in Manhattan. Same thing in Austin, Texas. Those are two new teams. I know that's not what Sony's been doing. Sony's been acquiring studios. They've been building these second-party relationships and then acquiring the studios. But if they lose First Contact Entertainment to Facebook, and then Facebook has them make their tentpole shooter on the Oculus, that is going to be a problem. That's a double-faceted blow. Sony doesn't have a shooter, and Oculus could really use that, like a Call of Duty type of game. Excuse me. Now, the losing World of Warcraft, not a huge deal. People are leaving Warcraft in droves and going to Final Fantasy. Losing Diablo, not a huge deal. There's not a big Diablo based on PlayStation. Losing Call of Duty is a bigger deal. People are trying to leave Call of Duty. Call of Duty sales are way down, engagement's way down, but they don't have anywhere to go, especially now on the PlayStation platform. I think a lot of people are going to Halo. I think a lot of people are going to Apex Legends. I think even some people might even be going to Fortnite. But Sony needs to have a shooter, and they needed to have a shooter a year ago, in my opinion. And then you have this issue of Xbox becoming the home of Western RPGs. You have Fable, you have Starfield, you have Elder Scrolls, you have Fallout. I'm probably missing something. They
And
are
like
like the
Obsidian's
home.
game too.
Obsidian, they're going to be the home of Western RPGs. And someone could come in and do a remake of Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas. You need a Western RPG. I think you need to have a studio, and I know they've got Horizon, but I think you need to have someone building a big, massive, ambitious
And
RPG.
even RPG is kind of like setting quotes with Horizon, because yeah, it's not like, like
Right,
Fallout or anything like that.
right. Then you need to keep your identity that you are the home of the Japanese RPG. Whatever's going
Yeah.
on with the
They
relationship with
cannot lose
Square,
that. They cannot lose that now. Can you
yeah,
imagine?
you You
That's
need
what, yeah,
to.
no, that's what I'm seeing this in certain discords, and like it's like it's gonna be Square next, it's gonna be Capcom. I'm just like, y'all need to relax.
Yeah, I don't think an acquisition is like on the table, but you need to stop Microsoft from getting in there because I know they want to on both the Capcom front and the Square front. Whether it's putting Shu on the board or putting Japanese Sony leadership on the board of these companies, you have to do something to make sure that you have a say at the table. They did this with From Software. They brought a 1% stake of ownership in From Software
Yeah.
so that Sony's on the board. They have a seat at the table every time From Software does something. And I believe it is the only reason why Microsoft hasn't acquired From Software or hasn't made one of the From Software games exclusive. I believe that Microsoft would be have no problem writing a $300 to $500 million check for Elden Ring. I firmly believe that, and I think From Software would take it in a heartbeat. And I think that Sony having 1% stake in their parent company is the sole reason why that's not happening. I do the same thing with Devolver. Devolver's probably going to go public next year. They've already done it in the UK. They're going to do it in the US. They need to find a way to get a seat at that table in the boardroom and make sure they don't sign any deals with Microsoft.
Yeah.
That's important. You don't need to acquire companies, but they're doing these little things. They have this big stake in Epic. So they have the seat at the board table with Epic. So if Epic's going to do something, they're going to know about it before Microsoft is. So they can keep doing little things like that. I would keep up the small acquisitions with somebody else and First Contact for sure, and just make sure you have those relationships with Sega, Capcom, Square in Japan. That if Microsoft were to come in and do something, you at least know about it. Because what if they're going to? You're probably not going to be able to stop a hostile takeover of Microsoft with Square. Although I don't think that's what Microsoft wants to do. They're about building goodwill. They don't want to be a part of a hostile takeover.
Jeez.
That
Yeah.
would be really toxic to what they're trying to build over there. Um, but if they were, you want to be the first one to know about it.
Yeah.
Or if they sign some deal to have the next Final Fantasy game be Xbox exclusive, you don't want that to happen. Obviously, there's something going on behind the closed doors, and in the boardroom between Square and Sony because they have a very tight relationship right now, and you don't want something like Outriders failing and going to Game Pass and then being a success in Game Pass to be this lure to get the Japanese games over on Xbox.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I mean, if we're talking about Japanese companies and Japanese game makers, I would bet money it would be Sega or Bandai over Square Enix right now. That relationship between Microsoft and Bandai has been there, and it was Sega and Microsoft. Of course, it's always been there as well. But with Sony,
I
it feels Square Enix is definitely kind of like they're the buddy they'll take to the movies with them.
I feel like that would definitely be like this is already kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of people in terms of talks of monopoly and now Microsoft or Xbox being the Disney of gaming. But yeah, I feel like if a Sega or Bandai Namco, if that were to happen, like I think that would really like even though this is already raising eyebrows for people, I feel like that would really like people would really start looking at them a little bit weird, which I already find it weird that people are celebrating this just in general. This is getting closer and closer to the monopolistic sort of two mega corporations essentially owning everything within the industry or something along those lines. Like it's like I said in my tweet earlier, it's just dystopian as fuck, right? Is it isn't
Super,
this
yeah.
isn't this kind of like Shinra from Final Fantasy VII Macho, just like a giant ass like corporation or something like that? Like I don't know. It's just oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
To me, I think the dystopian stuff is the crazy harassment issues that are going on in Activision, and they can't get Bobby out of there to save the company and get everyone to come back to work. Like that's the dystopian stuff, and I believe that this is not going to be terrible for the gaming industry, and Microsoft's going to come in and save that company. But what would be terrible is Microsoft's done all this goodwill with Game Pass and accessibility with handicapped people and the LGBT community and being in a great place to work and not having these work environment issues. And they're going to save Activision from the sexual harassment and all these problems in Bobby. But what if they
Which of course is the good thing coming out, and that's what it seemed. It seems like a lot of people are celebrating that, but I think a lot of people aren't thinking of the other factor, which you're about to get into,
But
Gene.
they absolutely want Capcom. They absolutely want
Yeah.
Square and those exclusive. They absolutely want really any of these Japanese companies, and they can flip a switch and do a hostile takeover of Square, and it would be that would be bad. that would be catastrophic. That would be awful. To me, I thought that Activision would probably fold and go out of business. I think it would take 10 years, but they were heading in a path that was unsalvageable. And I think that this acquisition is going to, they're going to lose accounting people. They're going to lose HR people. They're going to lose management leadership at the top because there's going to be a lot of job redundancies. But I think this is going to save 8,000 people's jobs.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you don't want the Japanese stuff to happen that everyone wants to happen. And Sony needs to get in these boardrooms and prevent it from happening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's about the like kind of the whole mega corporation taking over and consolidation, all that stuff. Yeah, it's again, it's getting to a point where it feels like it feels unreal. This is the point where like it felt unreal. And again, the whole positive side of it, of course, is what you just eloquently just said, Gene. I feel yeah, that's probably the most positive we're gonna get out of this, other than the fact that now like a whole bunch of games and franchises are being blocked off from not just PlayStation, right, but also Nintendo. And then what are they going to do in response to that? And I can't even imagine what Nintendo's actually thinking right now, or they even care, you know?
Yeah,
They don't
yeah,
care.
and we'll wrap up here in a minute, but yeah, I guess the last thing we can touch on before we get out of here is just like I'm really curious to see like I feel like this is way more murky than the Bethesda deal itself, but I'm really interested to see what the FTC and the DOJ are going to do with this. Like I don't know, I don't think they're going to block it, but I do think it's a lot more murky in the fact like yeah, they're going to have to review this and they're going to have to really see if this has the build if they view this as a sort of deal that will substantially lessen competition within the industry. I don't think like if we're just talking about the entire gaming industry like in terms of like Sony, Microsoft, EA, Ubisoft, like I don't think it becomes a monopoly talking about that because we do have obviously Tencent and Ubisoft and EA and all those other players still on the board, but I do think the conversation does get interesting when we talk about subscription services in general because that is a market within itself, right? And Microsoft feels like they are like the titan within that market by itself. So like now by purchasing Activision Blizzard, does that all of a sudden make Sony unable to compete within that new market because now they can't get the Bethesda games on their competing service. They can't get the Activision games on there as well. So I'm really curious to see if the FTC and DOJ if they view that as potentially like okay now that does lessen Sony's ability to compete in that market specifically. Gene, do you think this is like without a doubt gonna go through, or do you think there is any sort of possibility that this will be reviewed and possibly blocked?
I think it's going to be a long year and a half on stories like this. I think it's absolutely going to go through without a problem. There might be some roadblocks and some bumps. It's going to be far worse than the Bethesda deal. Remember, there was like every month there was some new drama or story, and almost all of it was like, is this game going to come? Is that game going to come? And then the Dishonored collections, the Wolfenstein collections, just pop up on Best Buy for the PlayStation one day because they're not announced
Yeah.
anymore. And there's these awkward situations where Xbox is at E3 and they're not talking about the Bethesda games that are coming to PlayStation. So it is going to be a long few months of headaches, and is this really going to happen or not? But it's totally going to happen. And the only reason why this is a bigger deal than the Bethesda deal is because they overpaid. They dramatically overpaid, and they bought that mobile division. So I don't think that a lot of this is really going to be that big on Sony. Losing Call of Duty is a big deal, but outside of that, I mean, it's really not going to really kill Sony.
Macho, do you think this is a done deal that this is gonna go through?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's right now. I mean, if Phil Spencer's writing that blog, I'm pretty sure he has he's a tight grasp on like everything that's going on
Yeah,
there.
he's feeling
So
confident.
for me, yeah, so for me, it's like it's kind of a done deal. But like, yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Gene where it's just like again, none of their franchise really appeal to me, but to like the casual gamer, like the Call of Duties, or even the World of Warcraft, it still has an audience, even if it's declining. And Overwatch obviously is in hot waters, but who knows if it's going to make that turnaround now that it has new leadership, right? New leadership can brighten new horizons, and I feel like that's what kind of what Xbox's mindset is going to be when it comes to this the turning of Activision Blizzard. Now, what does that mean for PlayStation? I mean, I feel like only time will tell, but I really think that they're just gonna really hunker down and be more focused and
I don't know. I don't know
kind
what they're
of.
gonna do, man. I don't know what they're gonna do.
I mean, what can you do? You know,
I don't know.
what can you do what can you do other than than doing the know? I'm sorry, than knowing what you're good at and doing that, and that's what they've been doing. And they keep doing that. Just be way more driven.
I just really hope that this doesn't cause them to do anything too reactionary, right? Like I hope it doesn't, like Herman or Scott Rhodey or Connie Booth or whoever, they don't go to these teams and start going like, okay, we need to start producing things a little bit faster in order to compete with the sheer output that Xbox is going to put out, or something along those lines, right? I hope this doesn't really do anything too reactionary to them, but at the same time, like, this isn't something that you can just kind of like brush under the rug, right? Like, they're going to have to do something. I don't know what it is, but I don't know, man.
They need a shooter. They got to find a shooter.
Yeah.
Within the next, they got to. A shooter's got to show up out of thin air.
Hey, that's Deviation Games, Firewalk, and Haven Studios. They're all working on multiplayer games. Let's hope that it's going to be quality when they come out in 3 years from now.
Yeah, the thing is that with things like this, like it doesn't feel wholesome. I don't know, man. It's like even with the whole ZeniMax thing, it's like it didn't feel like a wholesome, like, kind of like moment in gaming. You guys know what I mean? Like we get excited when these big companies buy studios that makes sense, and you know they're gonna do well and foster under them. Which I'm not gonna say that Activision Blizzard is not gonna do well under Microsoft, but still, it's like one of those things where it's like, oh, you're just taking the cake and leaving the party, aren't you? Like, that's what it kind of feels like.
Yeah, I think we've made that clear in this podcast, that there's obviously pros that we could get excited about, but there's obviously some areas of concern that we have as well. So yeah, man, that's gonna do it for this little impromptu emergency podcast. We're gonna get started with these outros, get everybody out of here. I am your host, Soul. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this. And I just want to say, PlayStation fans, man, please stop saying that. I think on Jaffe's stream, Gene, I saw someone super chat that, like, oh, like PlayStation doesn't have to worry about it. Like Spider-Man alone is bigger than anything Xbox has. And I'm like, guys, like the denial is insane, man. The hoops that people are trying to jump through to be like, oh, everything is fine, everything is still sunshine and roses. Like, come on, guys.
Did you see that meme someone posted up? This is Sony right now, and it's Harry come out of that brand building Spider-Man 2. Yeah, he's like, oh, I have a Spider-Man now.
Yeah, I saw that. But yeah, Gene, why don't you get started with your outro?
Thanks for having me on, guys. I think things are going to work out, and everyone's going to be happy, and life is going to keep moving on. But yeah, Sony does need to do something in the shooter space, and I really appreciate you guys having me on, and hopefully they buy First Contact. Hopefully they're specifically listening to me and will buy First Contact Entertainment.
I doubt that's gonna happen, man.
No,
Macho, what about you, man? You got anything going on?
Oh man, just play your damn games, and we'll see you Saturday.
Definitely. All right, guys. We will catch you. We'll definitely be talking about this more on the podcast this week. So yeah, until then, we'll see you guys then. Peace.